Welcome to the Bedrock Engineers Podcast, bringing you robot combat discussions for people who don't know what they're talking about.
It's carnage here in the Battlebots! Oh! Huge hit there! Now he's a fire-breathing dragon! Hey! Hold on! Woo! I feel like I'm in a scene from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre! Getting, we're gonna need a bot medic!
Here are your hosts, Ben and Scott. Our audience is witnessing history in the making on this episode of the Bedrock Engineers because this is the first time that neither one of us is under the influence of alcohol in any way. I'm sticking to the Coke for now. So before we talk about episode 2 of Battlebots 2019, we should follow up on the Blacksmith Quantum fight. I was actually wrong about the events of the separation of the two machines. They actually had to fight twice and edit it in to one battle.
Oh, really?
Because the first time they got stuck, they couldn't separate them in the arena again, so they had to wheel them both out in like together, and then they had to use that 2,000-pound hydraulic press to get them apart. And it turns out, and literally no one knew this on the face of the earth, because no crusher has ever been able to do this before, but Blacksmith's top armor is made of AR-500, right? Mm-hmm. It turns out that when you pierce AR-500, it forms barbs. No other steel does that, apparently. And then, of course, they couldn't get the tooth out because So what they did was they had to wheel them out. They made this discovery after they unscrewed Blacksmith's top armor and cut the tooth off of Quantum. They looked at it and they were like, holy cow. And I've seen the picture. There's actually gouges in the tooth itself from Blacksmith's panel where it just dug in and grabbed a hold of the tooth and would not let go. So what they did was 2 hours later, both machines are repaired to how they looked before the fight was stopped. And then they just immediately got stuck again. But this time, because Blacksmith had a hot fire going underneath that armor, it almost kind of melted the two things together. And to this day, months later, the tooth is still in that panel. They never got them apart.
Wow.
So
they cut Quantum's tooth off to get it out?
Actually, I should correct myself. I think they only had to do that the second time. But that second time, they were far more stuck because they, Yeah, that happened. Okay. So there is a sticky situation now because how on earth do you make rules around this?
They needed to really try to anticipate that. That was kind of my point.
But nobody knew that about AR-500 because even though AR-500 is used as armor against crushers all the time, no crusher has ever been able to get through it until now. And once that happened, then that discovery was made. Oh no, AR-500 does this thing. And if you fight a crusher that can pierce that, and you have AR-500 on your top, you will get stuck and the fight is going to be awful. So what happens if Quantum has to fight a machine that's made of AR-500?
I don't know. That's going to be interesting.
Oh boy,
Yeah, that's a problem for him, really.
Jeez, how do you make rules around that?
Well, it's very hard. I want to say one thing. I said, it was a knockout. I don't consider it a knockout, but I do consider it kind of like Blacksmith couldn't proceed. Quantum could proceed even though it had Blacksmith stuck on its tooth. It's kind of the way I see it, I didn't see it. I did say, it was like, Blacksmith was knocked out in episode 2. Or on our podcast in episode 2. I don't really mean that Blacksmith was literally knocked out. I understand the rules, but they were impaled and they were unable to proceed at all. And Quantum definitely could still move and was. One thing I noticed also, kind of talking about episode 2 is, I was taking notes. I wanted to be ready to go for the podcast. And that really hindered my viewing of episode 2. It kept me from, it hindered my viewing of episode 1. It really, I lost a lot of details. I turned on the TV a little bit before the the episode came on last night, Friday night, and saw some of the previous show being replayed, and I saw things I didn't even notice because I was busy writing notes, and so I paid a lot more attention this time.
Well, I did tell you after our first episode when I came to your house and discovered
You mean the studio?
The studio, yeah. When I discovered that you had taken all those pages of notes, I said, I never told you to do that. You don't need to take notes. And then you did it anyway for the first episode of Battlebots.
I don't do things just because you tell me.
But, if you find, and I really am encouraging you now, just don't bother taking notes.
No, I need notes.
Well, you could argue that, like you said, you don't have, a DVR thing. You can't rewind and watch fights again.
Yeah.
Like I did for episode 1.
I definitely missed a lot of detail. For instance, you're right. Blacksmith was able to put some fire down on the ground and get close, get in the neighborhood of Quantum.
I still don't know why Al Kindle didn't at least try that.
Well, I have a big problem with hammers, man. They don't use the hammer when I want them to use the hammer.
You got to be careful with that sort of thing, though, because a hammer can make the front of your robot jump up and makes the whole robot torque.
I understand that, but my point is when the guy is in range, hit him. This last week we're going to talk about here in a minute. I'm like, hit him, he's right there. And no, he waits till he moves.
In their defense, vertical spinners are a hard weapon to hit safely with an overhead weapon.
Well, then hammers suck.
Well, the weapon itself...
Use your hammer, man. Hit him.
The weapon itself can't cause as much damage as your average spinner can, but the type of shape, the type of body shape that a hammer allows for a really solid wedge on the front or a completely solid body construction with only on the top middle the pivot for the hammer, whereas a spinner needs a big cavity for its weapon, or a flipper has to have the two separate panels on the front so that it can actually fire. Yeah,
I understand.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. All right. Well, I guess we might as well just jump right into reviewing the second episode of season 4.
I have one more thing. I said something about Al Kendall. Mm-hmm. I said screw Al Kendall.
You said who cares about Al Kendall, which I agreed with. I kind of was like, I kind of am letting my sort of personal biases get in the way of how good this fight actually was, just because I wanted to see Al do well.
Actually, I think I said screw Al Kendall. And I don't really mean that. Al Kendall's a good guy. I understand, everybody wants the underdog to do well. So I found that I was a little harsh when I reviewed our episode 2 after episode 1's first fights. So I kind of want to apologize for that. I tend to focus on the fights and not as much on the robots, but I'm trying to, get into the robots. They're certainly interesting. Anyway, I might have been a little hard on Al Kendall.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, not one comment talked about that.
Yeah.
Nobody said, well, that guy Scott's an asshole. But before I forget, there was a really good point made by a guy, or actually, I made this point after a guy commented on this. He said, I don't know what Scott's thinking about, in regards to the entanglement being counted as a knockout. That's definitely not a thing that should happen. And I said to him, I kind of never thought about this before, but a newer, air quotes, fans of this sport kind of have ideas that make sense to them going in.
Sure.
If they may come in and think, well, why are Tombstone's wheels exposed? Why aren't they protected? And then a guy will come in and say, well, this is the reason, and they'd explain it. And then that newer fan might still not get it quite yet, and he'd be like, well, that's silly. That I'm not buying it. It doesn't seem like it would work. And then over time, you kind of realize that is the way it kind of works. And
well, if you're going to get me to believe that exposed wheels are a good thing, I'm not. I'm still opposed to exposed wheels.
You see?
They're bad.
These days it's more about making the wheels themselves strong enough to survive direct hits from weapons, because people like to think of wheels as kind of a delicate thing where it's like as soon as they take a hit they either come off or they get too deformed to drive properly, and that's just not the case anymore. So wheels can be exposed just fine, but of course, like it's a good mentality to have that you're not going to buy something until you see it working. So, yeah, I have no issue with you thinking that exposed wheels are a bad thing.
Yeah, it's going to be a while before I think they're okay.
It took a little while for me too, but I definitely see the logic behind them now. Okay, so would you like to go ahead and move on to the episode itself?
Yeah.
Because I thought it sucked.
Well, I didn't think it sucked. It wasn't as good as episode 1's fights, that's for sure.
This was basically Cripple Fights the episode. Which is really what this was.
They weren't. They certainly weren't as good as episode 1. That's for sure. No doubt about it. Here's the thing, though. There's 67 robots, so let's just say that's 68. That means there's 34 fights to get through one round of fighting. There's gonna be some bad robots, and there's gonna be some bad fights, and that's just how it is. If we, went and grabbed 67 college students and had them do a boxing match, there would be 3 or 4 good boxing matches. Now, granted, we expect more out of the top level competition, but in anything, man, the top 10% rule it, and that's only 6 or 7 robots. Let's say top 25 are really good. That's still a small number, and really, it's going to be a small number of fights. So we're going to have to it's like a tournament in many ways, even though it's not a tournament structure. But in many ways it is. They're going to fight 4 fights each, supposedly, hopefully. And then they're going to pick the best 16. So you can kind of think of it as a tournament. And you're going to see in the lower rungs poorer performances than you are in the higher rungs.
But there were seasoned veterans in this episode, Scott.
Yeah, but
who should have no excuse for this.
But in the NFL, that's 30 teams. Awesome teams, all the best in the world. And yet nobody thinks all 30 teams are great. We think some of those teams in the lower rungs suck. We say it about quarterbacks. They suck. Well, it's one of the best 30 in the world, and yet we think he sucks compared to Tom Brady, for instance. So you're going to think some of these robots, even though they are hopefully the cream of the crop in the world, they're going to suck compared to a Tombstone or a Saw Blaze, or a Bite Force. They are. It's just how it is, man.
But Minotaur was in this episode, and it was bad, too.
Well, it also looks like people aren't exactly ready to go like I thought they would be,
They're not ready to go like I thought they would be. Yeah, I made a point about, saying, I think I mentioned this in our first episode, which was that well before the season was confirmed for viewers, they told the Roboteers about it so they would have plenty of time to get their machines ready.
But not all these guys do this 100% of the time. And
we can't expect that.
I'm sure they're rolling into the pits and fixing things that we would have thought would already be fixed. This isn't NASCAR with $100 million budgets, man. So you got college kids that took a semester off. They weren't able to work on it until that semester. It's life. It's life. Even when you get out in the world and start working, you're going to find that. I work for a very large, very large company that has a lot of money, and yet they're not perfect. We roll out, we start work, we don't have a ton of things like you would assume we would. So you're not going to ever have everything, man. It's just not going to happen. But we certainly would like to see them perfect.
Yeah, I would like that. Basically, I think what it boils down to is that we have no right to criticize a team for not getting it completely right, because these things do cost money and they do cost time and effort, and they sacrifice relationships.
They do.
But we do have the right to be disappointed in
we do.
Fight.
We certainly do. And you're right. These round of fights, weren't really even good.
You know how I said that I watched every fight in the first episode at least 6 or 7 times?
Yeah.
I did not rewatch a single fight in this episode, apart from Black Dragon versus Texas Twister, because people are not happy about that judge's decision. But of course, that's the second fight. We should go in order.
Yeah.
All right. So
I got some things to say about that too.
This first fight between Son of Whyachi and Huge was the only one that did not either have a robot or both robots break down in the middle of the fight, or just go in not working fully from the start.
Yeah, the truth is, we don't know if Huge was working or not, because you know why?
Why?
He got its ass kicked.
Oh, brother. Well, okay, so after we recorded...
He didn't do much.
After our recording last week, I discovered that you had taken notes on some of Carbide's fights that are on YouTube. Did you watch Series 10 Oh, well, I was really hoping you were. I thought about sending you this video, but then I realized, oh yeah, he watched it. Yeah, whatever. They fought, Carbide itself fought a machine called Gabriel that also had these big plastic wheels, and Gabriel very nearly won. It just got hit and hit and hit, and those wheels were getting mangled, but it kept on going, and it was one of the best fights ever. Genuinely, it almost beat Carbide. And you know what? What's funny? Carbide had to buy new batteries because theirs overheated from having to spin up the weapon so many times in that one fight.
From hitting the other guys
From hitting the other guy's wheels and not doing any significant damage. And they had to spin the bar back up so many times that when they took the top off, they were like, oh, damn. Our batteries literally look like rising dough.
Yeah.
So they had to buy new ones and get them shipped overnight. They literally were still screwing in the last screws to putting these new batteries when they went into their next fight.
I can't believe you would go into a season with only one set of batteries.
Well, you can't predict something like that. These batteries are expensive as hell, man.
I know they're expensive as hell, believe me.
Yeah.
But that's the heart and soul. You can't do anything without the battery. The battery is first. I believe that motors improved after batteries improved. Motors certainly improved, brushless motors, but it takes the batteries first, I think.
Yeah, but anyway, I thought when I heard that Huge had solid plastic wheels this season instead of those spoked wagon wheels they had before, when I heard they were fighting Son of Whyachi, everyone went, "Oh no, R.I.P. Huge!" But I was like, "What are y'all talking about? Did you not see Carbide versus Gabriel?" So I thought Son of Whyachi would be even worse than Carbide was against a robot with these types of wheels, because Son of Whyachi's the ends of that weapon are these blunt hammers that are not going to be able to shred through this plastic like Carbide's sort of hooked tips were. And also Son of Whyachi's weapon is spinning like 100 mile an hour slower than Carbide's weapon, which I know Son of Whyachi's has more energy. But once you have enough energy to go through those wheels and keep spinning, it doesn't really matter. Those wheels took the exact same amount of damage as before. Probably even more than Son of Whyachi could do from Carbide, because Carbide's bar is just spinning faster. And I was thinking they're going to go with a shorter bar, which they did, and therefore Son of Whyachi's not going to get big side swipes with its weapon on the tip of Huge's bar. And Huge's bar is instead going to be able to hit the center parts of Son of Whyachi's weapon and cause a lot of damage to that. I thought they had a lot of things going in their favor. And for the first part of this fight, it was going exactly the way I thought it was going. And then suddenly it just wasn't.
Yeah. I saw Huge fight, I believe, 2 times last season, 2018. And I was really surprised that those flimsy little wheels didn't get destroyed immediately. But they didn't. Until the end, of course, then they got destroyed. Well, when I saw these clearly different wheels this season for 2019 for Huge, I thought to myself, those aren't going to last, man. They were way too hard. Hard plastic. I mean, I think
they did seem to be a lot thicker than Gabriel's wheels.
Huge's advantage last year was those wheels moved and absorbed in shock and didn't tear apart and folded but came back together. Well, this is just hard plastic, man. Hard plastic is going to get destroyed when it hits steel. That's just what I believe.
Yeah. Well,
and Huge changed their wheels and definitely did not improve them, I would say. I mean, did Huge win last year some fights?
It won 3 fights, yeah, against admittedly easy competition, but it worked really, really well against them.
Well, it didn't until when they finally. I guess they didn't make it into the 16, right?
They did make it into the 16, and
they
lost to
immediately.
They lost to eventual champion Bite Force after beating Bite Force up for most of the fight, because Bite Force's weapon stopped working very early, and it also was not even big enough to hit Huge's body anyway. But
Bite Force tore those wheels to pieces, right? And knocked his motors out?
No. Huge took no damage except for the lasting damage they had from getting broken apart by Ice Wave in the previous fight. The mounting brackets were not up to the task.
Okay,
it just suddenly fell apart.
So Huge got completely destroyed in the fight before.
Yes, Ice Wave.
They got destroyed in that fight. I think Huge has got a bad design. I'm not a fan of Huge's design, man. Those motors are sticking out there, dying to get broken off.
Sticking out.
Yeah.
Where does it have exposed motors?
Well, what attaches to the wheels?
some poles that are meant for self-righting.
It sure looks like those are motors in there to me.
No. If it gets on its side, it falls back onto its wheels.
Between the wheel and the weapon.
What? Between the wheel and the weapon, drive belts to drive the weapon. Because you don't direct drive a heavyweight wheel. That's completely ridiculous idea.
Looks to me like they got motors between the weapon and the wheels.
It's just the pulley system. Yeah, that goes from.
All right. Well, thank you for correcting me.
From the motor to the weapon or wheel. I think there's both. Yeah, I think I'm really curious to hear what the huge team's explanation is for why those wheels broke the way they did, instead of being able to stand up to that weapon the whole fight, because it was really standing up to Son of Whyachi. And I can tell they did some damage to Son of Whyachi, because by the end, when that weapon was spinning, it was wobbling around as though it was unbalanced, which is probably the exact reason why it was doing so. But yeah, super disappointing, and well, not disappointing, because it was an all-right fight. It wasn't necessarily a good scrap, but it had some good hits. Yeah, I guess so. I really thought there was a chance that Huge could win, but it sadly didn't. So moving right along to what is probably arguably the most enjoyable fight of this episode, Texas Twister and Black Dragon. Texas Twister has a really interesting design, I think, because it's one of those diagonal spinners they don't see a lot of, because the gyroscopic forces of it are weird.
Well, why is Texas Twister's weapon turned at a 30-degree angle? I thought that looked
toward the ground.
Stupid and not good, man.
It looks kind of cool, but
looks. I mean, okay, I'm not talking about looks. I'm actually talking about, is it going to work? And I don't think it pointed down at the ground is going to work.
I mean, it could potentially get a better hit on a wedge, but I'm pretty sure that the physics aren't as simple as that. I
didn't like that, man. By the way, I love their colors.
Oh yeah, that the Lone Star State, baby. The reason nobody really does those diagonal spinners is because they just really combine the worst parts of both horizontal and vertical spinners. Worst parts of horizontals being that your own robot gets flung way across the arena when you hit somebody. And the worst from vertical because you have the gyroscopic effect, but actually it's even weirder and more funky than with a vertical spinner. So when you have a vertical spinner spinning backward, to throw the opponent upward, when you turn, the outside wheel of the turn lifts up, and it can slow down the turn a lot, and it makes vertical spinners kind of hard to steer, and it can lift their feeder wedge up off the ground and potentially create an opening for an opponent to get in under you and just push you or hit you.
So when they turn, their momentum of their spinner makes them
lift up. Spinning things resist being rotated, basically.
Sure.
But with a diagonal spinner, so this thing is tilted forward toward the ground and it's spinning clockwise, right? When you turn right, the forces pull the nose up off the ground until it is level with the ground. You may have noticed that's why they seem to just turn right for the entire fight instead of turning left a single time, at least until the spinner stopped working.
Yeah.
And that's because when you turn left, the forces pull the nose of the robot down toward the ground, and it can make the spinner hit the ground, which happened in their testing video, where they were they were filming it in the test box. They turned right, thing lifts up off the ground, no problem. They turned left, the spinner instantly hit the ground, the robot went tumbling all over and just destroyed all the lighting equipment in the test box.
Oh, really?
It was so funny. And I was just like, dang, that's a problem. And it's really weird to me that when they have the robot upside down, it's a perfectly functional undercutter.
Yeah, it is.
So why not just do like that?
Well, yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, Fuzzy's been told this a million times, that machine would work better if it was an undercutter, I'm sure I know more about that machine than you did, even though you designed and built it. Yeah, but still, I'm sure he knows that, especially, now that he's fought it 4 times, at least.
Well, you like Black Dragon's egg beater?
Black Dragon's egg beater didn't seem to really get the chance to show off. It didn't actually get any hits, really. It also seemed to get spun up very slowly. Like, at the beginning, I was watching it, and Texas Twister's spinner fired up instantly. Black Dragon's was kind of just taking its time getting going. I could see the thing quite clearly without any motion blur for a good 5 or 6 seconds.
Okay.
And the wedge on it is a little small, but it seems to be pretty effective. And it's got a flamethrower on its shoulder, and the idea of a spinner having a flamethrower makes me nauseous, because that's purely a gimmick, and the idea of a flamethrower is that it's a show weapon, but it can do damage if it sustains contact. What does a spinner do, Scott, when it hits something?
I don't know.
It sends it flying away, out of the flame. Therefore, the flame never gets a chance to do anything. It's a gimmick, and I don't like it. But dang, is that a big fire that comes out of it? Big orange fire.
I didn't think Texas Twister won.
Well, I mean, at least you're being cordial about it, unlike a lot of people on Reddit who are really vitriolic about the first split decision of the season. I think they did win. And I'll explain why.
So you're right. They did win.
No, I mean, I think they deserved the win.
You thought they won before they announced the decision?
I had to do a lot of sort of thinking about this, because I had no idea who the fight was going to go to before they announced it. And then once it did go to Texas Twister, I decided to come back to this later, because I had a feeling that people were going to not like it, and they don't like it.
You knew
they don't
that.
like it. Yeah, I knew that. I was like, ooh, boy.
Well, Texas Twister, Fuzzy's daughter, she didn't seem like she thought they won.
No, yeah, I mean, being in the fight as it's happening is much different from watching it from 9 different camera angles.
I'm sure.
Right. Why do you think...
I didn't like what Fuzzy said in the interview either. I can't remember his words, but it was basically, well, that's how it's going to be. I mean, I don't know.
I remember that.
I wasn't impressed. Learn, man. Learn. Move on. I mean, I don't know.
I can't imagine that anybody would ever cede a victory because they think the other guy deserves it.
Oh, no, that's not how it works. No, you have judges for a reason, man.
That's only happened...
You can't apologize for winning.
That's only happened once to my memory ever, and it wasn't even on Battlebots. So I guess it's irrelevant. But here's why I think Texas Twister won. So as it happens, I actually spoke with Greg Munson, one of the guys who's in charge of running the entire show, on Facebook Messenger today. And he said that once Discovery acquired the rights to the show, they changed the weird aggression rule to where pushing somebody no longer reduces your aggression, but instead it just doesn't count for quite as much, which I completely agree with, by the way. And that's also why Scorpios beat Ice Wave last season, or... this really, I think, just validated a lot of people's opinions about this fight. I think that it sounds like right now I'm giving people reasons why Black Dragon should have won, but hear me out, all right? I kind of realized through thinking about this that people tend to overvalue the last parts of a fight more so than the middle or the beginning.
Oh, they definitely do. Finishing strong is big.
Yeah, finishing strong. If Robot 1 spends the first half of a fight completely owning Robot 2, and then the second half of the fight is Robot 2 completely owning Robot 1, people are probably going to say Robot 2 should win, right?
Yeah, they remember the end.
So I'm guessing you did the scoring again.
Actually, I didn't write down a score for this fight.
I kind of did too. I didn't write anything, but because I'm lazy, but you know. So I figured that Texas Twister had either all 3 damage points or 2 of them, and Black Dragon got 1. And then Black Dragon had the control points, both of them. So who does aggression go to? I think that aggression should actually go to Texas Twister because, sure, you can earn aggression points by pushing, but you earn more by using your weapon. And Texas Twister was using its weapon for the entire first half of the fight. And then in the second half of the fight, Texas Twister was still being aggressive despite its weapon not working. They were both machines were going at each other for the entire time. Now, Black Dragon obviously was way more successful at that because it was pushing Texas Twister all over the place. But keep in mind, that's control points, not aggression points. Texas Twister was never running away, and they were absolutely not completely helpless.
Well, so on the aggression now, what did you say the new rule was? I didn't. You talked about it, and then you talked about last season.
Using going at the other guy.
You said that it doesn't reduce your points, How could it ever reduce your points, by the way?
Okay, so this rule really came under fire in the Sawblaze Razorback fight, where Sawblaze's weapon broke the first time they tried to use it, and then they spent the entire fight just using their dustpan wedge to push Razorback everywhere and never leaving them alone. Everyone and their mom thought Sawblaze was going to win that fight, but through a split decision, Sawblaze lost. If you manage to survive and dominate a fight without your weapon working, you should be rewarded for that. So what we did was change that rule so that pushing somebody and just going at them without using your weapon no longer takes away aggression points from you, but instead it just doesn't count for quite as much.
How could it have ever taken away aggression points? That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Well, we have Bite Force, the boring wedge bot that won the first season, to thank for that, because ABC decided, okay, from now on, no more robots that don't do damage winning fights ever.
Well,
was basically what they decided.
But you also have to address the situation where clearly a lot of people's weapons break and don't work, and then the only thing you got is to push around.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw Texas Twister getting pushed around a lot, and I think if we watched a replay, I think you see him running a little bit.
I mentioned earlier that the only fight I rewatched was this one, and I watched it a bunch of times to try to really analytically look at it with no bias and just force myself to think, okay, every part of the fight is exactly even in terms of how I should judge it in my mind. The second half is not worth more than the first half. It's worth the same. And I kind of realized...
That's true.
And I realized Texas Twister spent the first half of the fight with its weapon working, which means that...
Was it doing anything with its weapon, though?
Well, yeah, it hit Black Dragon a bunch of times. A whole bunch of times.
It didn't do really much damage.
Well, it did some really nice damage.
Did it?
Black Dragon had a battery fire.
Yeah.
Bruh. And that wedge was really screwed up by the end. But point is, Texas Twister spent the first half getting more aggression points than Black Dragon, and then the second half, both machines were equally aggressive. So overall, Texas Twister was more aggressive, and they can't split the 2 points. They have to give both to one guy.
I understand that. I certainly didn't see them being equally aggressive in the second half. Not at all. But
Texas Twister was never running away. It was always making an attempt to go at Black Dragon and
they didn't
push
have
it.
complete control.
But having control over your opponent gives control points. All right, if they are being just as aggressive as you.
No. I mean, they didn't have control of their robot. They couldn't drive it all that well. It was jacked up.
But I already said that Black Dragon should get both control points, right? Well, point is, being successfully aggressive gives control points, and being unsuccessfully aggressive should only give aggression points, right? But the point is, I think Texas Twister got both those aggression points because it overall was more aggressive than Black Dragon.
Okay.
And then at that point, I think maybe there's an argument for Black Dragon getting one of the damage points and Texas Twister getting only 2. But if that happens, then it's still the same result.
Yeah,
it's either 5-2 or 4-3, and Texas Twister still wins in both scenarios.
I've tried to do the math, and it looks to me like splitting the damage points doesn't do a thing.
Well, it could if you...
How? For instance, if somebody wins control and aggression, they won. That's it. It's over with.
Yeah.
And if somebody wins... If you split control and aggression, like you're pretty much saying, right? You believe that control and aggression were split in this fight?
No, yeah. I think control.
You believe?
You can't. Remember, you can't split the 2 points. Yeah.
You feel that control and aggression were split in this fight?
Yeah.
Okay, then it doesn't matter if you take all the damage points or you split the damage points. It doesn't make any difference.
Well, there'd be some scenarios where it would, right?
How? Again, how would that make any difference?
Actually, hang on. If you win control,
if it's 2-2, Ben, if it's 2-2, then whether it's 5-2 or 4-3 makes no difference.
Holy shit, that's a big problem. There literally is no point in splitting the damage.
There's no point.
Yeah, actually, I never thought about that.
Now, if you were going to, as a grading system, it actually does make sense. So in the last episode, I did that, knowing already I figured out it doesn't make any difference. But I did it just because, it gives me a way of saying, well, this guy did some hitting. But it doesn't make any difference as far as a win or a loss goes. None at all. It's either going to be 5-2 or 4-3. Makes no difference.
Do you think that would be factored into the final 16 ruling?
Well, it might. And that's why I wish they would actually give their scores out. Particularly, I think you should give your scores out on a split decision. In any kind of a fighting sport, UFC, boxing, whatever, if there's a split decision, they're like, Judge A scores this 28-29. Judge B scores this 27-28. They all give the scores, man.
Well, then the next fight was Duck versus Bombshell, which was boring, and then the fight after that was Shatter versus Witch Doctor, which is a much better fight, and we should skip the last one and talk about this one. But for the sake of integrity, I guess we'll talk about Duck versus Bombshell. Good Lord.
Yeah, Duck, I couldn't even, I was like, what is its weapon? And he flipped it up, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's a flipper with a little bitty beak. Do people like Duck?
Oh, people love Duck. I love Duck. Well, the thing's an unbreakable brick.
Then that's why Duck's there, and being unbreakable is important, but the bottom line is this show wants, just like ABC was like, no more pushers, you're going to have to do some weapon damage, you're going to have to do some damage to your weapon. People want to see some damage done, and Duck's just surviving, which is really important. Really important. However, it's like watching men's soccer. The defenses are so good, nobody can score, and so it's boring. And even though their reliability is very good, their defense is awesome, they got no offense, and people like offense. Defense wins championships, and offense puts butts in the seats. And viewers on the couch, so...
Yeah. And it's also just really cool to see high defense versus high offense, which is not what we got in this fight.
No, we didn't really know. There was no big offense from anybody.
It's great to see that Bombshell dies in the exact same way still that it died last season every time.
And you gotta... Reliability is huge, so Duck's got that going for him, and apparently Bombshell doesn't.
Those two front wheels on the front are so close together that the thing can't even turn.
Yeah, it wasn't a great fight. I have no notes for that fight.
Oh, I was so disgusted. I just
KO.
This is why I didn't want to talk about it.
And it was a KO because the guy his robot just quit.
He couldn't flip over. Like I said, the same weakness as before, where that weapon doesn't have enough torque to roll the robot back up onto its wheels so it can drive toward the wall with the weapon going, hit the wall, and then flip back forward onto its front. Which is what's supposed to happen.
Did Duck flip him?
Duck did flip him, yeah, with that lifter.
Yeah.
Pushed him against the wall, lifted him, just flipped him right over. Well, anyway, I guess Bombshell is a little bit more interesting than that overall because they're back to modularity. They can switch that weapon out with a horizontal spinner, a lifter, or I don't know if they have their hammer this time, but the hammer before was so wee that I don't even think they bothered.
Yeah.
This is the upgraded version, essentially, of the robot that got second place in Season 2.
Really?
Because they were the Season 2 runner-up, yeah, only losing to... Well, actually, they lost 2 fights. They lost to Complete Control...
Season 2, that's 2016?
2016.
You mean 2017?
2016.
2016, okay.
Yeah, because remember the year-long hiatus, there was no season in 2017. Yeah,
okay.
They lost a fight. They lost the first fight to Complete Control. It was an utter stomp. But then they got wild-carded and won fight after fight, and then they got completely annihilated by Tombstone in the final. So,
okay.
Yeah. It's a neat little bot, and I know that people, like I was saying for Ribbit, some people don't like the modularity. I think it's cool. But they clearly are not, as reliable as they need to be, because they were just flipped once, and that was it. The fight was 20 seconds long.
Yeah.
The count out itself took more time than the actual fighting did.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't great, man. There's no doubt about it.
All right, let's just move on before we both just decide to break into tears over how much time was wasted for that fight. So Shatter versus Witch Doctor is next, and now's the first time I'm going to bring up the Remars live stream because, y'all, it's been a number of weeks now. If you really cared, you would have seen it. It's all over Reddit. The full fights are there. Battlebots, the day before the first episode aired, did a live stream of actual live events, and Witch Doctor was in it, and they defeated Tombstone and Bronco by knockout, both.
Really?
Witch Doctor did. Oh, yes. It was, and
that's not, that's part of this season?
No, that's not part of the season. That was
kind
filmed,
of
that was actually filmed live, so there was
like
no
pre-season.
editing. There was no editing going on. No, that was filmed live, meaning that it was filmed way after. Yeah, it happened way after this entire season happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously every robot was repaired, to full capacity so that they could participate in this event. But Witch Doctor defeated Tombstone and Bronco by knockout, and the way they beat Bronco was so vicious that I was actually kind of stunned. It was just, it completely tore Bronco's asshole inside out. It was crazy. And that immediately put them at part of the top of my list for favorites to win the whole season, really. And then this fight knocked it down a bit because it caught fire and was a smoking wreck by the end of it.
And you saw this whole fight that we're talking about that was live?
That was a live event, yeah. I was watching it as it was actually happening in Los Angeles.
Well, Shatter, I was thinking the whole time, hit him with your hammer, and he never hit him. I think he swung that hammer 2 times, and then they got their hammer knocked off, and then they decided to start hitting with the hammer, which was stupid. I don't know.
Because they thought, well, we're screwed anyway, might as well.
Well, they should have hit with a hammer when they had a hammer. But there was multiple times when Witch Doctor was right in front of Shatter, and I was like, hit him, but no, he's not hitting him. He's not hitting him. I mean, it is robot fighting. Hit him with the damn weapon, man.
I think Kenny and Chris were getting a little frustrated for the same reason. They were like,
well, I mean,
for a robot that claims to be able to hit 50 times in 3 minutes, they've hit 0 times. And
every time he was in range, man, I mean, it's like, hit him. Nope, didn't hit him. Then he swung his stupid hammer down there and got it knocked off. And that was it, man.
Yeah, well, that's why hammers are a bit risky to use
lose
against a vert, is because if you bring it down on that weapon, it's going to get destroyed. The vert will come out on top of that exchange.
7-0, man.
7-0?
I mean, can you give can you give Shatter any points?
I mean, like, they did not cause that fire inside Witch Doctor. Absolutely not. Damage.
No,
you only get damage points if it's deliberate damage. And if a machine breaks itself with no input from the other guy, you don't get any damage points.
No doubt Witch Doctor was struggling with its own issues, man, but they weren't because Shatter did anything to them.
Yeah, but this is another good example of why how people tend to overvalue the last moments of a fight, because even though Shatter did no real pushing of any kind, it was never more aggressive than Witch Doctor, and it certainly lost all 3 damage points. I still thought there's a chance that the judges might give it to Shatter just because Witch Doctor was stuck at the end for like 15 seconds.
I didn't.
You didn't?
I was very under-impressed with Shatter.
Well, I was really impressed by their ablative plastic armor, actually. Because it seemed to work really, really well.
Now, okay, I do want to say, so Shatter is the ones that had all the plastic on top and then hard armor, right?
Yeah, hard armor underneath that.
So I was really, when they talked about this robot before the fight, I was really impressed with the technology that they were talking about. I thought they had, some unique ideas where your armor is going to fly off when it's hit. But and so I was expecting good things. I also liked the look of their robot. And I was expecting good things, but man, they did not come through. They underimpressed me big time.
Well, here's the thing, is like I was really undervaluing their armor until I actually saw the fight, because I misunderstood what they were saying before. I thought what they were saying was by a blade of armor, they meant as soon as this gets hit, the entire piece is going to detach and fly off, leaving nothing there except the metal beneath.
Oh no, I didn't.
And what it actually was that the armor gets big plugs carved out of it every time, but unless like Witch Doctor was going to hit that exact same spot again, which is very difficult to do, I'd imagine.
Right.
Then they're going to be hitting a brand new piece instead.
Yeah, no, it was layers of armor.
3 inches thick, they said in some areas.
Yeah, and then with this plastic on top, which I think is a good idea, which is kind of what I was talking to say about Rivet. I don't obviously get into making your plastic look like an animal shape of any sort.
Look like a frog.
But the idea of having some plastic on top to absorb some impacts, and just get destroyed first, I'm cool with that. I think that's great. But Shatter just did not come through. They didn't come through offensively. They should have used their weapon more. In fact, they really barely used. I got them swinging it 2 times when they actually had a hammer. Just very, very unimpressive. You know.
Yeah, this definitely was a disappointing first fight.
Did they have one person driving and one person working the weapon?
That type of thing with the mecanum wheels has to be operated by two people. Hammers usually are anyway, but this thing has to be.
Well, I think there's, the more I thought that was a great idea, but the more I look at this, it seems to be that the guy with the weapon is never in sync with the guy driving.
I think the guy driving has to tell him to fire.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, you don't want to get your driving screwed up by an unexpected swing of the hammer and the whole robot.
This whole
coming
system,
off the floor.
then you need one driver to handle everything, man. There's got to be a way to do it. It's. I don't think it's working when you have these two drivers swinging weapons, and it's just man, you got to use your weapon. It's a very quick thing. Someone's there, boom, jab them. Someone's there, boom, jab them. Not a second later, man. Might as well.
I have to agree that they should have been using the hammer more, but I'm still not entirely, letting go of that notion I have, which is true that verts protect a machine very well from an overhead weapon like a hammer.
Well,
what did you think of
hammers? Might not work well. They did test this one, and it wasn't flipping up real high. I noticed in episode 1, whoever had it might have been Blacksmith.
Blacksmith.
Their hammer really did flip them up, and then put them at a big disadvantage when they got flipped up. But I didn't think Shatter did that. I didn't think Shatter's weapon flipped them up. Of course, they didn't use it enough to figure it out. But anyway.
Well, what did you think of the mecanum wheels?
Well, so I thought that was unique. Unique. But I guess the idea. I mean, I don't know, man. Like if it's just going to be skating around willy nilly, that's no good. You need control.
A little excessive.
Well, couldn't they control this thing? Can they make it go forward and backwards, and then make it rotate slightly one way or the other?
Yeah, there were like I said, I only watched this fight once, but there was some impressive.
So wait. They can make it go forward.
Yeah, they can.
And then make it go backwards.
Yeah,
and then they can make it turn these kind of rotation.
Yeah, they can make it. It's like
I'm down with that, man. The problem is it didn't come through in the fight.
Yeah, it really didn't.
So design is great. Having your machine fully functional and ready to go is very important. And then actually just driving it and doing what you're supposed to do is really the most important thing, man. And they definitely did not come through on that.
Yeah.
So a good design can't take you. I'm not saying they had the best design, by the way, but execution is more important than design.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing that really bugged me is that I think it was Kenny who referred to the mecanum wheels as omni wheels. I should go on record, not the same thing. Completely different construction. Because mecanum wheels that Shatter has have those corkscrew design that he was talking about, where everything's laid where those rollers are laid at a 45-degree angle. Mm-hmm. Omni wheels have the rollers laid at a 90-degree angle to the actual rotation of the wheel, and they're kind of laid in sequence. And I think it's as simple. I really don't know what the difference is. I think mecanum wheels are a lot more durable than Omni wheels. Like you wouldn't use Omni wheels in combat because they would break too easily.
Yeah. Well.
Anything more to say?
They didn't come through. They were unimpressive, man. I'm surprised somebody doesn't go find a hot shot RC car driver, someone that's really good RC car driver.
Some of these guys are.
Well, I would assume some of these guys are, but the bottom line is, man, you have got to be able to drive.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. I mean, you can't say Shatter's driving was bad in this fight. It just didn't properly really utilize the mecanum design.
Yeah, I mean, what was bad about Shatter is they weren't using their weapon.
I really have to agree that I would have liked to see it more, even if it did.
It's like a boxer that's right there in front of somebody and he doesn't hit them. It's like, dude, what's going on?
Well, if trying to hit them could put you in a really vulnerable position, then I would say be a little more careful.
The other thing this is it's a competition where you're going to get invited to be in the top 16. And I'm thinking the best way to get invited into the top 16 is to punch the hell out of somebody, beat them up, hit them. Mm-hmm. Use your weapon. That's what they want to see is weapons. They don't want to see pushers. So use your weapon. I mean, they bragged about it. We can hit 50 times in 3 minutes. Well, okay. I mean, they didn't.
Maybe they should have not left that in the episode.
Well, they said it.
Well, they said it, yeah. And if you talk shit and you get hit, then you got no. You're the one who ends up looking foolish. So, anything more to say?
No.
Okay. Axe Backwards versus Mammoth. So this fight was where I started drinking. Mammoth. Good lord. At least this robot is enjoyably stupid.
Yeah, it's hard to. I can't really tell what Mammoth is. I mean, they have.
It's a mess, is what it is.
I mean, it's a big thing, and you might be surprised. They might flip more people out of the ring than we realize. They definitely got a tire knocked off.
Yeah, just out of nowhere.
And by the way, actually, excuse me. Let me restate that. They did not get a tire knocked off. A tire fell off. But
it was like, man, this fight's so boring. I'm out.
They damn sure flipped Axe Backward out of the ring, man.
But Axe Backwards' full body drum, which weighs I think 150 pounds, wasn't even working. Another cripple fight where they just went in and the weapon wasn't even working.
Well, I'm hoping. What I'm hoping really is that people showed up and they weren't ready to go, and hopefully by fight 2 and fight 3 they are ready to go. Because otherwise, there's 67 teams that showed up, and it looks like half of them or more are not ready to go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Axe Backwards is very much an experimental design. It's the first machine, I think, to my memory, that's ever had a full-body vertical thing, whereas in the next fight, actually, there's a full-body horizontal, a full-body spinner. Full-body verts, I don't think have ever been tried before. And they tried it last season, and it really didn't work out, so they brought it back this time. Way better design this time, but sadly it seems that they just didn't have it working by this fight.
Yeah.
The most enjoyable moment of this fight was, of course, everybody else's favorite moment where Mammoth's weapon bar hooked into the axe on the back of Axe Backwards and just literally lifted it up into the air and just dangled it there for a few seconds, like as though it was like taunting it, like it was a show of power. Like I am clearly superior to thy, and you're at my mercy because your weapon happens to not even be working, and this fight would be going substantially differently if it was.
Yeah, I know. I
mean, at least we know that Mammoth is capable of the kind of power out of its weapon needed to throw a 250-pound machine.
That's true. I mean, if we might say we don't like the style, we don't like the design, but it did what it said it was going to do, and that's important.
Yeah, they beat them in exactly the way they said they would,
and that's important, man. You got to watch out for a team that does that. Do I see them, going deep into the finals? No, not really, but you might be surprised. If they really can actually keep flipping people out of the ring, that's going to win without, any controversy. And, like the crushers that are clearly have an issue with crushing people and getting impaled. If you just flip them out of the ring, man, that's it. Over with. Done.
But the weapon on Axe Backwards wasn't working, Scott.
Well, I understand.
This wouldn't have happened.
No, I'm not saying this is an impressive fight. What I am saying is they did what they said they were going to do.
No, you're right about that. But I mean, there just is no denying, flat out, that this fight would have gone so much differently if it went the way it was supposed to go, which is that both machines are functioning at their intended levels. Captain Shrederator versus Wan Hoo. Oh, brother. Yet another fight where Captain Shrederator just dies all of a sudden.
Well,
like it usually does.
I mean, that's a problem for, we keep going back to the same thing, man. Reliability's huge. Wan Hoo, first off, let me just say, I was expecting some big stuff out of this Wan Hoo team. These guys, look tight, probably sponsored by the entire China country of China, China Red Army, or whatever you want to call them. And I did notice that the captain there, the team captain of Captain Shred, waved the American flag a whole lot.
Yeah, the whole robot looks like an American flag.
Yeah, which is awesome. I'm cool with that. Love it, in fact. But I thought Wan Hoo would do something, and they had a lot of power supposedly, but they certainly didn't do anything. They got their ass kicked. Then Captain Shredder died.
Just out of nowhere.
You got to go and analyze that stuff. You've got to go fix that stuff.
Captain Shrederator has a very poor win rate on Battlebots.
I bet you that's electronics, man. I bet you there's components dying there.
Yeah, I mean, so...
It could be mechanical, I don't know. But
I don't know either. So I mentioned last episode that Sub-Zero and Cobalt were originally not supposed to fight each other. Captain Shrederator was Cobalt's original first opponent, right? And the reason that they didn't fight Cobalt was because they have no spare parts at all. So they went up to Greg Munson and they said, hey man, look, we will gladly fight Cobalt, but if we have to fight them first, that's going to be our only fight all season, okay? So can you please put us against somebody else first so then we can fight Cobalt later?
You can't go to Battlebots with no spare parts,
Well,
man.
most of their spare parts were going towards the Chinese version of Captain Shrederator called Shrederator Tiger Claw, which I hear is actually a really good machine, but I've never seen it
Well,
fight.
that's bad.
Well,
You're trying to run 2 teams with what? 2 parts? I mean, dang, man. You can't run. No. You need multiple parts. Clearly, this is... my goodness, man. It's a combat fighting sport for machines. They are going to break parts.
Yeah, but... You know, like we were talking about earlier, there's limited money in their wallets.
If you're telling me that these guys last season didn't have enough parts because they were running 2 teams, then I say that's wrong.
No, they didn't have enough people last season. Last season, the old guy driving, the dad, was in China with Shrederator Tiger Claw instead of being at Battlebots.
Okay.
They had plenty of spare parts. This time they have enough people, but not enough parts.
So right now, this season, they don't have any parts?
This season they have no spare parts. It's like, how many parts do you have? Well, we got the machine. That's it.
They shouldn't even have been allowed to get into the competition.
Really?
I feel very strongly about this.
I don't think that's fair.
Man, you're going to show up with no parts. You can't be expected to do anything. That's a joke.
What? That's not fair.
It's like that's it's fair, man. You expect a team to be able to survive multiple fights and continue on? I mean, that's unrealistic, man. Do you really expect anybody to not have any broken parts?
Well, I mean, Captain Shrederator has just had
especially
season after disappointing
especially
season.
when they're not known for reliability.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they actually, I just realized I'm stupid. They do have one spare part, and it's the shell. So the shell that they have, what frustrates me a lot...
The one thing that's not breaking, they have an extra one of. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, you say that, right? But last season, their shell lost teeth.
Okay, so their shell lost some teeth. That's not why they keep dying, though, man.
No, it's not.
Okay, that's my point. Something keeps taking them out, and they show up with no parts... Obviously, for even whatever keeps failing on this thing, which I'm not sure what it is.
I'm not sure what it is.
I'm not sure if it's mechanical, electrical. Regardless, you got to have parts, man.
I love how we basically haven't said one word about Wan Hoo yet because it's just such an
Wan Hoo
uninteresting
did.
robot.
I've got something to say about Wan Hoo. Wan Hoo did nothing.
Yeah, it did nothing. It didn't look like they could drive, but that's because the front wedge was
actually, that's not true.
thing.
They got their ass kicked.
Yeah, they did until they suddenly won the fight. I don't know.
And then they won.
You know,
I like that. I mean, I kind of felt a little bad, but Kenny laughed at the dude.
Yeah, he did. What frustrates me about Captain Shrederator?
I'm sorry. Were they smoking? Were they smoking at the end? Bad?
No. I don't think. Was Shrederator smoking?
You sure? Because why?
There was so much smoke in this episode.
Kenny was asking him what happened to their bot, and he was like, "I don't know. I don't have a clue what happened to my bot." So something happened to their bot.
I have no idea what it was. Builders don't post their fight reports until after the Science Channel special airs on Wednesday night, so we won't know until then.
I think that one was smoking pretty heavy, but I'm not positive. I don't have notes on that. So
I didn't rewatch the fight because I couldn't be asked to. So just like every other fight in this episode, it was boring and forgettable, and there's nothing really more to say. Although I will say this, and this is where we give Captain Shrederator the credit that it deserves. It was performing flawlessly until it died.
It was.
Oh yeah,
and that's nice. That's awesome. You just got to fix that last part, which is reliability, and one of the key things to that. Well, reliability is in fight. You need to survive the fight. Mm-hmm. However, spare parts so you can go back out 100% for your next fight.
What was really impressive to me about the way they were driving was that, well, first of all, in the pit section, they mentioned exactly what I was talking about in the last episode, which is that full-body spinners have a harder time getting good hits because they can't adjust the trajectory of their weapon at all.
Yeah.
And hearing that actually be discussed right after I talked about it was like, ooh, validation. But also...
you mean I'm right?
Yeah, I'm right. Well, I know I was right because I'm always right. But what's
certainly think so.
But what was really impressive about the way they were driving was that usually when full body spinners get a hit, they themselves go flying. Captain Shrederator, when it was hitting Wan Hoo every time, it didn't seem to move.
No, it didn't, man.
And it kind of made me realize something. It's that full body spinners don't go flying if they are the ones who initiate the hit. Well, because of their forward momentum keeping them in place when they get the hit. It kind of cancels it out.
Well, he talked about that also, and you even said it. Spinning objects don't want to move,
No, he was talking about when they get popped up. Instead of flipping, they just go up and down.
I know what he said. But I didn't think much of full-bodied spinners. I found it looked kind of silly. But I tell you what, I was wrong. It worked pretty good. It worked great until it didn't work anymore. But he was definitely delivering lots of damage. Wan Hoo didn't do anything but get his butt kicked, and then his robot died, man.
Yeah.
Which is just a shame,
It is just a shame. You know what else is a shame? This main event. Yeah. This main event, Scott.
Yeah, main events, man.
The worst fight of the episode.
Main events in a lot of sports, main events do not come through. What's different about this sport, though, is, they're editing it. They can put them wherever they want, man.
I don't think they do
put
for
the
best
main events, fight.
Though. Because they have to film all that other crap to lead up and build up to the main event.
Well, you're editing it. It's not live. You can put them wherever you want.
But they have to film during the season the little promos before the main event starts, which costs money and adds to filming time and it's work. They have to pick a fight to make the main event.
You realize that promos are designed to mislead people and make them think something's going to happen in the next episode, and it never happens. So don't believe any promos, man, ever. My point is, this is not a live event. It's filmed months before they air the episode. Correct?
Yeah.
You would then think that your main events would be good. But this was not. This was not.
Well, I think the main event just goes how it goes, and they can't fix that.
Well,
they have to pick a fight and say this is going to be the main event, and then they film those things I was talking about, the promo things, which I know we shouldn't trust, but that costs money. It adds to filming time, and it's a lot of work to edit together. So there's no way that they can film every fight and then decide on the best one to make the main event, because then they'd have to refilm a bunch of shit.
Well, I'm not really following you there, I got to tell you, man.
Well, I'm just thinking about this in terms of production
to me like
design.
You're grasping.
I really think that they have to pick a fight and say this is going to be the main event.
Yeah.
And this was also announced as the main event of season episode 2 back when these fights were announced, and its order has not been switched up apparently. This new version of Minotaur is so good looking that
it was good looking.
That, dare I say it, the old version of Minotaur is kind of ugly compared to this.
I gotta tell you, it did look good.
It looks good.
But looks clearly don't matter.
It just went full Hypershock on us. Never go full Hypershock. That weapon did not work, and I've seen test footage of it spinning up in a good 6 or 7 seconds. That glorious jet engine sound it has. And in this fight, it just didn't work.
No, well, it's obvious. It's crystal clear that a lot of teams showed up not in perfect 100% working order, So I'm really hoping that everybody is able to work on their robots now and get them going, and fights get better in round 2 and 3.
Yeah. So this fight actually does have some history. The RoboGames versions of these two machines fought in 2018 before the filming. Was it 2018? It was 2017. Whiplash.
There was no 2017.
No, RoboGames. a live event, right? And Whiplash's 220-pound chassis fought there, and they fought the version of Minotaur called Toro Maximus, which is RoboGame's Minotaur, basically. And Whiplash kicked its ass way harder than it did in this fight, even though Toro Maximus's drum was fully working. It still never got spun up because Whiplash was on it and never left it alone. In this fight, Whiplash did a way worse job of doing that, but Minotaur's drum just didn't seem to be working, period, and it still couldn't get spun up.
Maybe neither one of these were at 100% because when I saw Whiplash last year, I remember them, especially in the finals, we'll call it, or whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't in the finals. I shouldn't say that, but in the Sweet 16,
they made it to the semifinals.
Yeah, and they were flipping people big time, but they did not have enough power to flip them over. And they tried multiple times, and they got them on the side. Their driving was better. By the way, that it's a brother. The two brothers that are driving Whiplash.
The Vasquez brothers.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man. That one dude does have Minotaur's driver's number. He has him a little intimidated or something. He's in his head. And he even said, I think I'm in his head. He's already beat him another time in some other competition. Yeah. He was all over Minotaur. He kept hitting him around the side. They were getting perfect spots to flip him, but they couldn't flip him.
Yeah, they never did flip Minotaur.
No, they would get him up on the side a little bit, but I mean, a flipper's supposed to be able to fling you, man. I mean,
well, it's a lifter, but it can flip people.
Well,
it's like Duck's lifter. It can flip you over, but it's not going to throw you.
Well,
that spinner didn't seem to be doing a lot of damage here either. Although that's probably because Minotaur's body is made out of like solid billets of aluminium. I've been watching too much British podcasts. Aluminum bolted together, and it's crazy strong, and even Tombstone.
Well, it certainly looked good. I'll tell you that. It
certainly looked good. I'll tell you what. Why were both machines so slow in this fight as well?
Well, I'm wondering if maybe they weren't up to 100. Either one of them was ready to go at 100%, man.
I was shocked by how slow Minotaur looked. It looked like it never broke 5 miles an hour in this entire fight. And even Whiplash was slow, because even when Minotaur got away and was putting away really fast, at an incredibly slow speed, Whiplash seemed to take a while to catch back up to them and get on them again.
I would tend to agree with you. I was really not unimpressed. That's not the right word. I was wondering why Whiplash did not have the power to flip him over.
Well, their lifter broke before the minute mark, making this another cripple fight.
Their weapon broke, but when their weapon wasn't broken, or maybe it was actually broken already, they couldn't flip him over, man. And they had perfect position to do so. The only time I thought Minotaur, even had close to being an advantage was straight on. And they lost that pretty quickly.
Yeah. I've never seen a fight between two such seasoned veterans who have done so well in the past where just nothing happens. Nothing about this fight was impressive. Nothing stood out. It was the most watered-down, milquetoast, weak fight that I've ever seen. And I was really hoping this fight would be what redeemed this episode, because every other fight almost was just lackluster as well. But this just was the worst out of all of them. It was worse than Duck Bombshell, because even though Duck Bombshell was a terrible fight, it was a terrible fight that wasted less of my time, because it was at least over quickly.
Well, so let me ask you, how many of the 14 robots in this fight, in this card, episode 2, do you think came in injured?
Well, let me see. The only fight where neither one...
No. Came in not at 100%.
Came in not at 100%. Well, Minotaur, obviously, because the drum seemed to only get up to 25% speed, even when they had a good chunk of time.
So let's work backwards.
Yeah.
Clearly Minotaur, then we think. I think Fight 6, which is Wan Hoo and Captain Shredder, I'd say they came in 100. They came in working.
Yeah.
You agree?
Was Wan Hoo's spinner working before it stopped? The first hit?
I believe it was.
I don't think their spinner was ever working.
Well,
I never saw it work. But I never rewatched this fight because it was boring, so I don't know.
I think it was. So let's skip them. Mammoth and Axe Backwards.
Axe Backwards wasn't working going in, so that's 2. Shatter and Witch Doctor.
Mammoth. Now, what was Mammoth again?
Mammoth was the weird spinner.
Oh, yeah. There's work. There's work.
Yeah, there's work, but Axe Backwards
Shatter
was not
and
working.
Witch Doctor?
Both were working, it seemed.
Okay.
Duck Bombshell.
Well, now, wait a minute. Shatter, yeah, theirs was working.
My dad's calling
me. Witch Doctor was working as well.
My dad's calling me. Hi, Daddy.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Love you too, dude. Bye. The man called me to tell me there was a full moon tonight and to go outside and look at it. Because that's an exciting event that doesn't happen once a month. Full moon? If it was a blue moon, then sure, tell me. Or if it was a lunar eclipse, I'd be like, ooh, that's cool.
Let's get back to our damn podcast.
Oh, boy. What we're just talking about, the fights that had a robot going in, not working. So far we've got Minotaur wasn't working fully, and Axe Backwards wasn't working fully.
Correct.
Now we're on Shatter,
Shatter and Witch Doctor.
Both of which seem to be working fully, so we can cross that off.
They weren't very good. But
no, they weren't. Duck, Bombshell. Bombshell sucked, but it was working. And so was Duck. Yeah, Texas Twister and Black Dragon were both working. And then the first fight of the episode was Son of Whyachi versus Huge. And I think actually Huge wasn't working fully because its bar was taking forever to get spun up too. Like, it was going real slow. But last season it was spinning up very quickly. And I don't know if that's a problem for sure yet.
It sure seemed like we were talking about more than just those three coming in, possibly not working correctly. But
yeah.
Anyway, well, I'm not convinced that Whiplash was at 100% either.
Well, let's also
but we don't know.
Let's also count the fights where a robot's weapon stopped working either at or before the halfway point.
All right. Well,
so things like Captain Shrederator.
Start at fight 1.
Well, actually, here, hang on. I should lay down some criteria. If a robot has taken damage that results in a knockout, so Huge's wheel getting broken, or Captain Shrederator just stops working, that doesn't count as it becoming a cripple fight, because that was actually the point where things were knocked out. So we're going forward now. Son of Whyachi versus Huge.
Wait. I'm not sure what we're doing here.
Basically, if a robot's weapon stops working before or at the halfway point, but their drive doesn't count. Right? So, Son of Whyachi versus Huge, they were both working the whole time. So,
well, I thought you said Huge, their weapon.
Well, no. I'm talking about their weapon stopping at some point. The robot breaks and makes the fight boring, which that didn't happen in this fight.
All right.
Their weapon was at least functional, even if it was way slower than it should have been. Texas Twister versus Black Dragon, both machines' weapons did stop before the halfway point. Slightly at least. That's 2. Duck Bombshell, we're not counting that because that was actually a knockout. Shatter, Witch Doctor, both weapons, I think, stopped before the halfway point, or maybe Witch Doctor stopped a little bit after.
Shatter's hammer got blown apart.
Yeah, but it was still damaged, and it became a cripple fight.
Okay.
Yeah. Same for Texas Twister and Black Dragon. Black Dragon had its weapon broken by Texas Twister. We're still counting that. So Scott's counting on his fingers. That's 3.
Well,
we had Texas Twister and Black Dragon. That's 2.
Yep.
And now Shatter and Witch Doctor. That's 4.
Yep.
4 machines, right? And Axe Backwards and Mammoth. Neither one got its weapon broken during the fight. Wan Hoo, certainly, if its weapon wasn't already broken when it went in, it certainly got its weapon broken in like a few seconds in, so that's 5. And then Whiplash's lifter broke pretty quick, so that's 6.
And you saying Minotaurs didn't get broken? Or?
Minotaurs did not get broken. It
It
seemed to be at least still a weedy little putt-putt spinner by the end, the same way it was at the beginning. So that's, let's see, how many? Yes,
6.
So 6 machines got their weapon completely busted before or at the halfway point during their fight. And then 3 additional ones never had their weapon working properly?
Yep.
Jeez, over half the robots in this episode.
Yeah.
Oh boy, so, oh my gosh. This was the first real big indicator to me that this 2-hour runtime I may have been right about it, because getting through 2 hours of this shit was not
Well, now,
easy.
are you saying you didn't enjoy this? You would have rather turned it off?
No, I'm not saying I wouldn't.
Rather watch something else?
Well, look, I should be clear. The pit segments in this episode we haven't talked about yet were amazingly good.
They were.
They were really, really good.
Again, I'm going to say, with 67 robots, you're going to have a bunch of crap. It's just how it is in life.
Yeah.
The top 10, 20% are going to bring it through to the end. Although it kind of looks like even some of your top tier robots are showing up not ready to go.
Yeah.
So we can only hope that they get ready to go, or else it's not going to be, that good.
Yeah. I mean, the fights. I mean, I think the only two kind of good fights were Texas Twister Black Dragon and Shatter Witch Doctor.
I'd agree.
But even those were nowhere near like the top tier of fights. They were some solidly low high tier to high mid tier fights.
Yeah,
they were 7s out of 10. But the pit reports, like I was saying, were top notch, giving the teams the actual ability to explain what their machines do, how they're unique, or what their plan is going to be. Was exactly what I was hoping for from this season, and I hope please do more of that. Don't keep doing the thing where you cut to an ad break before a fight starts twice. Last episode, you did it before a judges segment twice. This time, they cut to an ad break before a fight started twice, which was just a kick in the mountain oysters.
Well, they're going to cut to ads. Get used to it.
I know, but you can find other times for that.
Nobody ever wants ads to come on. They come on all the time.
You can find other times for that, though. Oh, gosh. And, of course, Gigabyte versus Kronos is probably going to be a 2-hit knockout. And that's why it's on the Science Channel bonus.
So, in our second episode, this is our third episode. In our second episode, you assured me that there was going to be two robots fighting in this episode. Did that happen? What were those two?
Oh, great! You really got to do this to me. You really got to do this to me, Scott. Monsoon and Ragnarok. It's not in this episode. When I said I was almost dead certain it would be.
Well, you can edit this out, but
no, for the sake of integrity and for continuity's sake, I got to leave this in.
You just
because
can't
I was
count
wrong.
on any. You can't until they come out with the fight card, man. They're just misleading you. They're trying to build, interest in their sport, and so that's just how that's going to be. I'll tell you what, I've been burned by that stuff so many times, man. So I wish they would come out with. I wish they already had the fight cards made up, man, and ready to go, so I could see them. Also, I hate their website. I hate their website.
What's wrong with their website?
Well, I can't find anything on it, so that's what's wrong with their website.
You gotta use the drop-down menus.
Oh,
I don't use Battlebots' website for anything. Go on their Facebook page and become a supporter.
No,
for $5
I don't want to go
month.
on Facebook.
You should become a supporter for $5 a
No,
month.
if it's on Facebook, I'm not going to do it.
Well,
Facebook.
Well, honestly, yeah.
I mean, I'm not down with censor book. I mean, Facebook.
I mean, CensorTube. I mean, YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but their supporter content actually is quite good. They revealed the fight cards early. That's how I texted you on, was it Sunday night or Monday night? This fight card to rant about the fact that Monsoon Ragnarok wasn't in it. And also, I ranted about the fact that Kronos Gigabyte was the bonus fight. And speaking of bonus fights, the bonus fight from the previous episode, which was Marvin versus Gruff versus Gemini, I said it would suck, and it sucked.
How did you see it? Did you see it?
I saw it because somebody posted it to Reddit on a Google link, and it was a boring fight that is not even worth discussing.
Well, look, man, again, 67 robots. We would be doing really well if half of them are excellent robots.
Yeah.
And that's probably not going to be the case. It's like everything in life, there's going to be the top 10 to 20% that are going to bring it home, and that's going to be 12 to 14 robots.
I forgot to warn the audience that this episode was going to be full of negativity. Although I think that was kind of understood when we both agreed that this episode sucked right as we were starting to talk about it.
Yeah, there's going to be more of these. I mean, how many episodes are there?
There's going to be 16 total, whereas last season
was
20.
I bet you we have 4 or 5 that we think suck.
I think that sounds fair.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's only 4 or 5, by the way.
Yeah.
It could be more.
Could be more. Hopefully it's less. Hopefully this is the worst.
And even in the even in the top 16, the Sweet 16, there'll probably be a bad fight or something there as well. Will that be just one episode, by the way?
No, the final 16 is going to be more than one episode.
Okay.
And since these are 2-hour episodes, I don't know how many episodes it'll be. But last season it was 3.
Okay.
With the last episode only having 3 competition fights and 1 exhibition fight.
Yeah.
And having only 4 fights in an hour, unlike the 5 fights per hour, it was easily the fluffiest episode.
Yeah, well, that's how the finals always are. I mean, if you watch the the Super Bowl, it's all commercials. They have a commercial all the time.
Look, the commercials are theoretically good. They haven't been in the past 10 years.
That's not the point. They're gonna have them whether they're good or not. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot more fluff. You don't see near as many replays because they're spending more time talking about this or that or blah, blah, blah. And it's just how it is in life, man.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, that was our analysis of BattleBots 2019 Episode 2. The pit sections were great. The fights were lame. I was alcoholic. And,
thanks for having me. I appreciate being a part of this.
Yeah.
Hope everybody enjoys the next episode. We certainly want the next episode to be good.
To be better than this. I'll take anything better than this. If it's even...
No, let's
all
go
right.
let's go with good.
Let's go with good.
Yeah, good or better than good.
Good or better than good.
We hope they're good. That's what we hope for.
Dang it, BattleBots. Jenny Taft, you were great. I want to make it clear.
Did a good
once
job.
again, the pit sections were amazing. The fights were just pretty bad.
And you know, I also have to say, Farouk is growing on me with that it's robot fighting time thing.
That witch voice he did was probably the worst thing I've ever watched on a screen before, though. That made me go, oh man. Like, I was just like...
And I did giggle when he said, have you ever tried to rhyme Portuguese? All right. Well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Recording this was fun. Watching that episode overall was not very fun. I'm sorry if anybody doesn't like our negativity, but this is just the way we thought of this episode. If you enjoyed it, I am very happy that you did. We did not.
Good night.
Good night.